Hi, Heidi Cox, and welcome back to my business blog. Many of you have seen my videos either on Facebook or through my blog, HeidiJCox.biz. And today I want to take a couple minutes just to share with you a new book related to an author that we're familiar with, who writes about home businesses, and especially during this economy, I think it's very appropriate timing. Many of you are familiar with Robert Kiyosaki, and he's got a couple books. One of my favorites was Business School for people who like helping people. And in this book, he talks about working for yourself as opposed to working for somebody else, and what kind of freedom that gives you. He wrote about this in 2001. There was a great part in the book where he talked about, related to my industry, a network marketing business is a new and revolutionary way to achieve wealth. A network marketing system, a system I often call personal franchise, is a very democratic way of wealth creation. Network marketing has had a bad rap. And certainly in some ways it's deserved it. There are certainly some successful companies out there, and some that have been successful, some that have been ethical, and some that haven't. But in the times that we're in right now, they're pretty depressing, and things are tough. And working for somebody else is not as secure as we once thought it would be. Robert Kiyosaki said it never was that secure, and that you're going to have these pendulums, and that you're going to find a time when you can't depend on that. And this new book of his, The Business of the 21st Century, I highly recommend anyone who is looking to work for themselves, is already working for themselves. I highly recommend you take a look at this. Let me just have a couple excerpts for you just to get you started. He talks about the fact that we live in troubled times, and these are no things that are new to anyone listening to this. Outsourcing, downsizing, foreclosures, mortgages and credit swaps, Ponzi schemes, recession, one piece of bad news after another, and layoffs, all sorts of things. He says in 2009, USA Today surveyed 60% of Americans polled said they see today's economic situation as the biggest crisis in their lifetime. So things are tough, and certainly related to jobs and the financial situation that's on our minds. Whether we try not to look at it or not, we see it all the time in the news. He said that he talked about this years ago, again in his other book in 2001. He talked about trading your time for your money, and that during a recession is the least reliable source of income there is. Why? Because when the number of employed people starts dropping, there is less disposable income in circulation to pay for your time. He says he's been saying this for years. There is no longer such thing as a safe and secure job. So again, we're not trying to be depressing here, but we are just trying to point out a few things that will help you think about your future. The number of people living officially below the poverty line is rising rapidly. The number of people who are working beyond the age of 65 is increasing. And so again, in the new century, he says that we are in a new century. And the new century that we're in is related to what he writes about in his other books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, if you're familiar with that. He had a real dad who was a traditional, worked and had a job, and he had a family friend who was his rich dad, and he taught him how to work for himself. He talks about the fact that the economy is not the issue, and that it's really up to us. We're angry. What can we do? How can we change things? And so what is the solution? He says that Robert Kiyosaki says the recession is the best time to start your own business. He said that there have been very successful businesses launched during recession times. Microsoft and Disney, to give it a couple examples. I never heard of that. I thought that was fascinating. And so people get creative in these times. He also quotes that 72% of all adult Americans would rather work for themselves than for a job, and 67% think about quitting their jobs regularly or constantly. So I find that really interesting. And years ago in the agrarian age, people did work for themselves. They were butchers and bakers and candlestick makers, and we know about that time. It wasn't until the industrial age, he points out, that we had workers. And so then there was the time in the 60s and 70s where IBM made it secure that you would have a job for a lifetime, but we know that that is no longer the case. So at this point, we're at an entrepreneurial fever that has been kicking into high gear, because when the economy slows down, entrepreneurial activity heats up. In fact, entrepreneurs flourish in these down times. So again, if you're thinking about a home business, it's certainly the time to be looking at it. And you'll find, if you look at this book, that in particular, Robert Kiyosaki, though he's never been in a network marketing company himself, is a big fan of network marketing because it's people helping people. So just wanted to give you a little intro in this book. If you have any other questions, feel free to check out or subscribe to my newsletter at HeidiJCox.biz, and have a great day. More to come.